Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today, I'm going to go my review of Night 1 and Night 2 of WrestleMania 41. Starting off the night for Night 1 for WrestleMania, we have Jey Uso taking on Gunther for the World Heavyweight title. I thought it was a good match, man. Back and forth matchup between Jey and Gunther, with Jey hitting an enziguri on Gunther. Jey then hits a spear for a near fall. Gunther then gets up, hits a power bomb on Jey for a near fall. Gunther then goes for a spear on Jey, but Jey counters it with a Hurricane Rana. Jey then hits a spear on Gunther, followed by a frog splash. Gunther then gets up, hits Jey with the title. Referee was distracted. Gunther then hits a splash of his own on Jey. Gunther then locks in a chokehold, but the hold is broken. Jey and Gunther both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Jey hitting Gunther with a power bomb, followed by a spear. Jey then hits 3 Uso splashes on Gunther, followed by a sleeper hold, and your winner of the match due to submission and new World Heavyweight Champion is Jey Uso. A couple of things I want to talk about, man, with this Jey Uso and Gunther match. Number one, for the past few weeks leading up to WrestleMania, I was one of those people that were very crucial with the build-up and the story between Jey and Gunther. For the first couple of weeks, I feel like the Jey and Gunther situation, as far as build, was lackadaisical. It really was. Until we got to that final 2 weeks leading up to WrestleMania, where I told you guys, man, Gunther needs to make this personal. There needs to be a switch that Jey has to hit to completely change the storyline between him and Gunther. And when, Gunther had that match with Jimmy, I remember telling you guys, man, that Gunther needed to either attack Jimmy and beat the piss out of Jimmy Uso, or attack maybe Rikishi backstage, something to send a message to Jey to make this personal, because what we were getting for the past few weeks leading up to the Jimmy incident, it was very lackadaisical. It was the same rinse and repeat shit that we were getting week in and week out, where Gunther would come out during a Jey Uso match, or if Jey was cutting a promo in the middle of the ring or on the announce table, Gunther would come out of nowhere and pretty much choke out Jey Uso, leaving Jey Uso helpless, whether it was on the announce table or in the middle of the ring, pretty much sending a message to Jey that Jey was not on Gunther's level. And then we get to the Jimmy match, where Gunther is, like I said, beating the piss out of Jimmy Uso, leaving him a bloody mess, while Jey is watching his brother seemingly getting his ass kicked, and, pretty much a bloody mess. And Jey is pretty much handcuffed to the ring ropes, watching his brother pretty much get decimated in the middle of the ring. So that was something that, once that happened, I think that was the switch for Jey, and the story intensified a lot more between Jey and Gunther, because, like I said, Gunther needed to make it personal, and he did. And it sent a message to Jey, where Jey had to figure something out, maybe do a little soul searching for Jey, where Jey had to come in to this match where it wasn't going to be something where we're going to get the same old Jey Uso that we've seen leading up to this matchup. The Jey Uso that we saw win the Royal Rumble, or the Jey Uso winning the Intercontinental title for the first time. We needed the more edgier Jey Uso, the more pissed off Jey Uso. And I'm happy that Gunther was able to bring that out in Jey. Now, with that being said, with this matchup between Jey and Gunther at WrestleMania, it went exactly how I wanted it to go, as far as Jey walking out World Heavyweight Champion. No, but with that being said, do I think Jey Uso is going to have a long title run with the World Heavyweight title? No, I do not. I just don't. I think with Jey, unfortunately, it's going to be something where I feel like he's going to hot potato this championship, and, he's going to go back to what, Jey Uso was. I just don't see Jey having a long, extended title run with the World Heavyweight title. I just don't. I'm not saying Gunther is going to be back in the realm for the World Heavyweight title again. I'm not saying that. I mean, he could have a rematch or cash in a rematch. Who knows? But as far as Jey is concerned, I don't see Jey having and holding the heavyweight title for a whole year or 6 months. I just don't see it. I mean, and it's nothing taken away from Jey Uso. I think Jey Uso was great. I've had a lot of praise for Jey Uso, from, him obviously winning the Royal Rumble, and him, winning the Intercontinental title. I told you guys, man, like Jey Uso has earned the spots that he's been given, because Jey has busted his ass to get there. Whether it was him winning the Royal Rumble or him winning the Intercontinental title for the first time, Jey has put the work in to put himself in the position that he is in now, being World Heavyweight Champion, because he's put the time and work in to be granted the World Heavyweight title. And, for that, it's great. And, I was excited for Jey to get the win over Gunther, even though I knew it was going to happen, or predicted that was going to happen. But, the question is now, okay, well, Jey is now the World Heavyweight Champion. What's going to be next for Jey? And how long is Jey Uso really going to be holding this, World Heavyweight title. And to me, I just don't think the title run is going to be that long. I feel like he might hot potato this championship, and the title run that Jay has is not going to be worthwhile. I just don't see him holding that World Heavyweight title for a very long time. And it might be a hot take for a lot of people, but I mean, you got to understand that there were some people that actually weren't even thrilled with the outcome of the Jay and Gunther match. They weren't thrilled with the build up or the lead up to that match. And I talked to people even after night one of WrestleMania, and then there was a highlight video that was played between Gunther and Jay, from what I understand, on YouTube, from their YouTube channel. I think it had like 41,000 dislikes. So there was a lot of people that were legitimately pissed off with the outcome of Jay Uso and Gunther in that matchup. And so I think some people didn't want Jay to walk out with that World Heavyweight title. For me personally, I think, I was happy that he won. But my standpoint's the same, bro. I don't think Jay is going to have that long extended title run that a lot of people think that he's going to have. I think he's going to drop that belt relatively soon, probably in the next 2 to 3 months. So we're going to see what happens. I mean, obviously, we have Monday Night Raw coming up. The Raw after Mania is the biggest Raw of the year. And hopefully we'll figure out the direction of where Jey Uso is going next now that he is the current World Heavyweight Champion. Moving on from that, we have a World Tag Team title matchup. It is the New Day taking on the War Raiders. The War Raiders are defending the World Tag Team Championships. I thought it was a good match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between the New Day and the War Raiders, with the War Raiders keeping the pace of the match. Kofi then hits a Trouble in Paradise in the middle of the ring, followed by Ivar hitting a moonsault in the middle of the ring. Eric and Woods then both exchange in the middle of the ring, but the New Day end up hitting the finish. Pins for the 3, and your winners of the match and new tag team champions are the New Day. A couple things I want to talk about with the New Day too, man. Obviously, the build-up towards this matchup has been shit, to be honest with you. And a lot of it, for me with the New Day, how I feel about the New Day is the fact that, yeah, they are a predominant tag team in all of WWE, hands down. But they dropped the ball significantly with the Big E storyline. Big E, when he came back, and, it seemingly looked like he was cleared to come back to wrestle, and he wanted to become, the New Day's manager. And then we get the New Day turning heel on Big E, which caused, obviously the New Day to turn heel. I felt like that story was still yet to be written, to be honest with you. I think, Big E could have been more incorporated into the New Day storyline. He could have came out during this match and ultimately, had the War Raiders go over, cause a distraction with the New Day for, the War Raiders to secure victory over the New Day to walk out still tag team champions. That didn't happen. So the New Day, unfortunately, that storyline with, them and Big E, it fell flat. It was a one-off. It was a one-done deal. And to me, it was just something that, they had something there with Big E and the New Day in that storyline, and it went nowhere. It went absolutely nowhere. There was literally no build at all for this matchup between the New Day and the War Raiders, to be honest with you. It was just one of those matches where I feel like it was almost a filler match, mid-card match at best. I mean, where the New Day goes from here, I have no idea. Do I think they're going to hold the titles for a long time? I don't see it. But then again, the tag team division is kind of abysmal at this point in WWE. There's not a lot of tag teams that are that strong right now to have, there's no backing for a tag team specifically right now in WWE. Maybe besides the Street Profits right now. But I'll say this. I think with, the New Day, they dropped the ball with the Big E situation. I think Big E should have been more incorporated with the New Day leading up to this year's WrestleMania. He could have came out during their match against the War Raiders, caused a distraction. It would have been a huge pop from the crowd if Big E's music hits and he walks down, during this matchup, causes a distraction with Woods and Kofi, which ultimately allowed the War Raiders to secure victory over the New Day because of the distraction. But that didn't happen, and we got the New Day becoming victorious in this matchup and becoming the new World Tag Team Champions. Hats off to the New Day for getting the win. Moving on from that, we have Naomi and Jade Cargill. This was a grudge match after, specifically what happened with Naomi attacking Jade. Seemingly some jealousy there between Naomi and Jade. The match itself was a good match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Naomi and Jade, with Naomi keeping the pace of the match. Jade then hits a power slam on Naomi in the middle of the ring, followed by a fallaway slam. Naomi then gets up, hits a split-legged moonsault on Jade for a near fall. Jade then gets up, hits a powerbomb on Naomi, followed by a Jaded that she landed on Naomi in the middle of the ring, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Jade Cargill. Hats off to Jade Cargill for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. Probably one of the matches of the night for me of WrestleMania Night 1. It was for the U.S. title. It was LA Knight defending the U.S. title against Jacob Fatu. I thought this was a good match, man. Back and forth matchup between Knight and Fatu, with Fatu keeping the pace of the match. Fatu then hits a power slam on Knight for a near fall, followed by Knight getting up, hitting an elbow drop off the top rope on Fatu for a near fall. Fatu then gets up, goes to the top rope, hits a swanton on Knight in the middle of the ring for a near fall. Fatu then hits a moonsault, but Knight counters it in midair and hits a BFT on Fatu for a near fall. But Fatu then hits 2 moonsaults off the top rope on LA Knight, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and new U.S. champion is Jacob Fatu. Couple of things that I definitely want to talk about with this matchup, man. Number one, this was probably one of the matches of the night for me on night 1, followed by, obviously the main event, which we will talk about here in a little bit. This was one of the matches on the card that I was definitely looking forward to, man. I have a lot of praise for LA Knight, as well as Jacob Fatu. I've stressed enough that Jacob Fatu has probably been the best free agent signing that WWE has had in a very long time. Fatu is a monster. That guy is a beast. And my thing with Fatu, and I mentioned this multiple times, that it was going to happen sooner or later that Jacob Fatu was going to be having championship gold around his waist at some point, whether it was the U.S. Championship or the Universal title. I'm all for Fatu having the U.S. title. I think Fatu is immensely over, and what he's done, obviously being a part of the Bloodline, him kind of going on a singles run, being kind of away from the Bloodline and Solo Sikoa. The sky's the limit really for Jacob Fatu. Fatu can make a severe impact in WWE, and specifically SmackDown. He could be the top guy in SmackDown, and he's proving week in and week out to be a top guy, a top draw for SmackDown, to have people come in and actually buy a ticket for the show, because Jacob Fatu, the guy doesn't miss. I mean, the guy is a legit beast in the middle of the ring, and like I said, man, he has a very high ceiling in WWE. I mean, he could be multi-time Universal Champion, U.S. Champion. I mean, there's nothing in the way of this guy right now to run roughshod on SmackDown. And to me, he is one of the best acquisitions that WWE has gotten in many years. I think Fatu is great. I was a big fan of this matchup, and as well as LA Knight, man. LA Knight is one of those guys, to me, in my honest opinion, that has turned his career around. I remember seeing LA Knight in TNA. I remember when he was Eli Drake. I remember him, in NWA when he was Eli Drake, and he was, wrestling under Billy Corgan's promotion. And I remember seeing Eli Drake then, and I said, you know what, man, this guy's got potential. And it wasn't like, LA Knight's, young in the game. He's up there in age. He's in his 30s. So it's not like he's, a newcomer coming in right off the indies. Now, this guy's been around for quite some time. So to see him come into WWE and completely revamp himself and his character and, his career and what he's done on the main roster, I mean, it's been absolutely awesome. And to be honest, I think, even his U.S. title run, I mean, he's 2-time U.S. champion. He's had some good matches with Shinsuke Nakamura. He had issues with the Bloodline, specifically Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa. And he's had some good matches, man. So, my question is for LA Knight is what's going to be next for LA Knight. Obviously, who's going to challenge Jacob Fatu next for the U.S. title? But again, man, I have a lot of praise for both guys. I think, Jacob Fatu's going to have a hell of a run. And I can see Jacob Fatu having a longer run with that U.S. title for sure, longer than Jey Uso with the World Heavyweight title. I just don't see, and it's no disrespect towards Jey. It really is. I have all the praise in the world for Jey, but I just think if I had to compare the two title runs between Jacob Fatu and Jey Uso, I think they have a little bit more faith in Jacob Fatu than they do Jey Uso, to be honest with you. And I can see Jey, hot potato that championship within the next 2 to 3 months, where Jacob Fatu can hold that, belt for almost a year, to be honest with you. And I think he is going to, run roughshod on that SmackDown locker room. And I look forward to who's going to challenge him next for that U.S. title. I'm definitely looking forward to it. But hats off to Jacob Fatu for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have Rey Fenix, who replaces Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio suffered an injury the night before WrestleMania. He was not medically cleared to compete at WrestleMania this year. He was supposed to take on El Grande Americano, but Rey Fenix replaces Rey Mysterio, and Fenix takes on El Grande Americano. I thought it was a good match. The one interesting thing I would say was, which I will talk about a little bit more later in the end of the podcast, Vikingo was ringside. Now, if you guys don't know who Vikingo is, obviously he's wrestled over in Mexico. He's wrestled for TNA. He's also had a little, stint, if you will, in AEW. He's an incredible athlete, an incredible superstar, But he was ringside during this match, and El Grande Americano, was walking around the ring. He notices Vikingo. Vikingo is sitting in the crowd. Grande Americano walks over. Americano and Vikingo have a little altercation. And all of a sudden, Vikingo pretty much kicks the hell out of Americano, which ultimately has Rey Fenix kind of capitalizes on that. The match itself was a good match between Fenix and Americano. Back and forth matchup between Fenix and Americano, with Fenix keeping the pace of the match. Americano then hits a 450 back senton off the top rope on Fenix for a near fall. Americano then puts a metal plate into his mask. Americano then applies an ankle lock on Fenix in the middle of the ring. Americano then hits a headbutt using the metal plate. And then Americano hits a diving headbutt off the top rope, pins for the 3. And your winner of the match is Grande Americano. Hats off to Grande Americano for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night, pretty much a grudge match. It is Tiffany Stratton defending the Women's Championship against Charlotte Flair. I thought this was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Stratton and Flair, with Stratton keeping the pace of the match. Stratton then hits a handspring back elbow on Charlotte Flair into the corner. Flair then gets up, hits a powerbomb on Stratton for a near fall. Flair then applies a figure 4 on Stratton in the middle of the ring, but the hold is broken. Flair then hits a natural selection off the top rope for a near fall. But Stratton hits her signature moonsault off the top rope, pins for the 3. And your winner of the match, and still WWE Women's Champion, is Tiffany Stratton. Hats off to Tiffany Stratton for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have the main event of WrestleMania 41 Night 1. It is Seth Rollins taking on Roman Reigns and CM Punk. Number one, before the match even gets started, the video package that was played for CM Punk was absolutely awesome. It was great to, go down, pretty much, memory lane, if you will, for CM Punk, showing some old highlights of him and, OVW and him being straight edge and his time in ECW and stuff like that. So it was great to see that. I thought the video package was awesome. The match itself was a great match. It's probably the greatest main event match that we've seen the entire WrestleMania 41 weekend. It was the match. It was a back and forth matchup between Rollins, Reigns, and Punk, with Reigns keeping the pace of the match. Rollins and Punk both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Punk hitting Rollins with a chair shot. Rollins then hits Punk with a trash can. Ringside, Punk then hits an elbow drop. Punk then hits a doomsday device with the help of Roman Reigns on Seth Rollins. Roman then hits a Superman punch on CM Punk. Punk and Roman then both exchange in the middle of the ring. Punk then applies an Anaconda device on Reigns, but the hold is broken. Rollins then hits a buckle bomb on Punk and Reigns in the middle of the ring. Punk then goes for a GTS, but Roman hits a spear on Punk, taking Punk out. Rollins then hits a pedigree on Roman in the middle of the ring. Rollins then hits a foot stop for a near fall. Roman then hits a spear on Rollins. Punk then hits a GTS on Roman for a near fall. Rollins then gets up, hits a pedigree on CM Punk in the middle of the ring for a near fall. Rollins then is telling Roman they need to get rid of Punk. Roman then looks confused. Looks like they were going back to their old school Shield days, but all of a sudden Roman then attacks Rollins. Roman then hits a powerbomb on Punk through the announce table. Roman then hits a powerbomb on Rollins through the announce table. Roman then hits a spear. Rollins then flips off Punk. Screen goes dark, which I thought was hilarious. Rollins then applies a sharpshooter in the middle of the ring, but the hold is broken. Punk then hits a GTS on Seth Rollins for a near fall. After that, we have Punk hitting a GTS on Rollins. Roman then hits a spear on Punk. Rollins then hits a foot stop on Roman in the middle of the ring. Heyman then grabs a chair. Both Roman and Punk are both looking on at Paul Heyman. Heyman then gives Punk the chair. Heyman then gets in the ring, hits Punk with a low blow. The crowd goes crazy. Heyman then delivers the chair to Roman. Roman thinks that Paul Heyman once again is, his wise man. Roman then hits Punk with a chair shot, but then Heyman hits a low blow on Roman. The crowd goes crazy. After that, Rollins then hits Roman with a chair, given to him by Paul Heyman. Rollins then hits a foot stomp on Roman, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Seth Rollins. After the match, you can see Paul Heyman holding up Seth Rollins' arm. Looks like Seth Rollins has joined Paul Heyman. Couple of things I want to talk about, man, when it pertains to Night 1, which I will also get into Night 2 as well. But I want to talk about Night 1 a little bit, man. Night 1, to me, was not that great, to be honest with you, besides the main event, which we will talk about here in a minute. a lot of the matches of night one just were not that good. Kind of lackadaisical. I mean, Jay and Gunther wasn't bad. I think Jacob Fatu and LA Knight, for me, was the second best match of the night, in my honest opinion, for the U.S. title. WWE did themselves a disservice this year for WrestleMania with the lack of build and storylines leading up to this year's WrestleMania. And it was more prevalent than anything this year. The Tiffany Stratton-Charlotte Flair match, I understand it was a grudge match, but I can honestly tell you this. It was very lazy. There was a lot of botches in that matchup. It was probably Stratton's worst match in her career so far, in my honest opinion. One of the worst. Charlotte Flair looked clueless. She looked like she didn't know what the hell she was doing in the middle of the ring. I was happy with the outcome of Stratton walking out with that title, but it was probably one of the worst Stratton matches I've seen since she's been on the main roster, in my honest opinion. And I mentioned this earlier, even with Jay and Gunther. I'm happy with the outcome of Jay walking out with the World Heavyweight title, but you got to ask yourself, how long is Jay going to hold that title? In my honest opinion, I honestly see him hot potato in that championship where he's only going to hold it for maybe 2-3 months max, and it's gone. Where you look at someone like Jacob Fatu, where I could see him holding that U.S. title for quite some time. I could be wrong, but that's just the way that it's starting to play out. But I will also say this, WrestleMania, going into WrestleMania even night one, it already had its issues. I mean, if you look at, Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio was supposed to be at WrestleMania this year challenging El Grande Americano. Well, he was pulled from this matchup due to injury. I think he had a torn groin or a pulled groin, which ultimately forced him out of this matchup with El Grande Americano, which ended up slotting Rey Fenix in as a replacement for Mysterio. And, you look at Rey Fenix, I mean, this guy just came into the fold of WWE, and then he has a WrestleMania match, and he loses. And the match was relatively fast. I mean, it was a quick match where, Grande Americano was victorious in that matchup. To me, it's one of those things where, this year's WrestleMania, I told you guys this last week, that I think there was a lot of plans backstage, in the back leading up to this year's WrestleMania where those plans were not facilitated. They didn't want to go with those plans and then ultimately ruin this year's WrestleMania, which I will talk about that whole scenario after I give my review of Night 2. But Night 1 was not that good. If anything, the main event saved Night 1 for WrestleMania 41. That triple threat match was probably, will go down as one of the greatest triple threat matches of all time in WWE. The Rollins, Punk, and Reigns match was awesome. It told a hell of a story. And I told you guys, even leading up to WrestleMania, Paul Heyman is going to play a significant role into this triple threat match, and that's exactly what happened. Nobody, first of all, CM Punk coming out to the ring, you get that video package, which was great, and then he has a live performance of the Cult of Personality, which was absolutely awesome. He walks down to the ring with Paul Heyman. I mean, we haven't seen Punk and Heyman together like that in quite some time. So it was, a lot of nostalgia there between Punk and Paul Heyman. So to see Heyman walk down to the ring with Punk, that was absolutely awesome. You see Seth Rollins come out to the ring, Roman Reigns, and then there was some confusion during that matchup where, especially with that chair spot where, Heyman was getting pissed off. He ended up grabbing a chair. Roman and Punk are both looking at Heyman like, hey, who are you going to give this chair to? And Roman's looking a little confused. CM Punk's looking a little confused. And then Heyman seemingly just passes the chair off to CM Punk. This pisses off Roman Reigns. And then we get Punk in the middle of the ring holding this chair. Now, all of a sudden, Heyman gets in the ring, hits a low blow on CM Punk. The crowd erupts. You know what I mean? And then we get Roman Reigns. And Heyman delivers the chair to Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is excited. Oh, he has his wise man back. And all of a sudden, after the first chair shot that he landed, I believe it was on Rollins or Punk, then we have Paul Heyman hitting a low blow on Roman Reigns. So the wise man turned his back on the tribal chief. And now the wise man has aligned himself with Seth Rollins, which I told you guys that this was most likely going to happen, that we could see Paul Heyman possibly aligning himself up with Seth Rollins. And I told you guys that Seth Rollins was the person that needed to win this matchup, where I wanted CM Punk to win it. In my heart of hearts, I wanted Punk to walk out and win this matchup, but Seth Rollins needed to win this matchup. And because Seth Rollins was the main person that was keeping this storyline alive between Punk and Rollins and Reigns, and two, he was, hell-bent and letting people know how significant this triple threat matchup was, and it was for the future of the business. And I thought it was put together very well, and that main event saved Night 1 of WrestleMania. Hell, I would even go out and far as say that main event for Night 1 saved the entire WrestleMania card, because it was not good for either Night 1 or Night 2, which I will get into here soon about Night 2. But I can honestly tell you guys, man, that that main event for Night 1 was awesome. It was absolutely awesome from top to bottom, and I knew Paul Heyman was going to play a significant role in that main event, and he did, and it was flawless. He done a fantastic job in that main event. Now, you also had to ask yourself the question, if you look at someone like Roman now is on an island all by himself. He does not have Jimmy. He doesn't have Jay. There's no Sami Zayn. There's no Solo Sikoa. There's no Jacob Fatu. There's no Tama Tonga, Tongaloa. And now he has lost his wise man. So now he is on an island all by himself. And this was something that was already kind of, premeditated, for a while now. A lot of people were saying that there was a good chance that Roman Reigns could be on an island all by himself. And now he is. Roman Reigns doesn't have anybody now. He has no counsel around him. He has no wise man. He has nobody, no supportive team around him for the foreseeable future. Roman Reigns now is a chief without an island. Or a chief without a tribe, if you will. There's nobody surrounding himself with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is all by himself. So now you have to ask the question, okay, well, what's next for Roman Reigns? That's another big question. What's going to be the rebuttal from Paul Heyman and why he did what he did and why he aligned himself up with Seth Rollins? And then you look at someone like CM Punk. This was Punk's big moment. This was his first WrestleMania main event in his entire WWE career combined. This was a big night for Punk. And to see Paul Heyman turn his back on his best friend and have Heyman align himself up with Seth Rollins, one of Punk's biggest rivals, where does this leave CM Punk? You know what I'm saying? So again, there was multiple different angles here, and my biggest thing was how was night one's main event, what happened with Paul Heyman, how was that going to correlate into night two? Now, did that happen? No, it did not happen. I think a lot of people were really legitimately pissed off with the main event of night two, which I will get into here in a second. But, for what it was worth, to me, this main event here between Rollins, Punk, and Reigns was the main event of this year's WrestleMania. It was honestly the main event that saved the entire WrestleMania show for both nights. The night two WrestleMania main event was absolutely awful, which I will get into in a second. But this main event here between these three gentlemen saved the entire WrestleMania card, in my honest opinion, because this year's WrestleMania will go down as one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. Not saying this match was bad. This was a great match. But the entire WrestleMania as a whole, it was probably one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. Hands down. And I can tell you this right now, last year's WrestleMania, this WrestleMania here can't even touch what they did last year at WrestleMania. Not even close. Not even a fucking chance. But again, you have to ask yourself the question, and that's why we have the Raw after Mania and the SmackDown after WrestleMania. What's going to happen now with storylines, and where's the progression going to go? John Cena is supposed to be on Monday Night Raw, tonight. So what are we going to hear from John? What's the rebuttal from John Cena? What's the rebuttal from Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman? Hopefully we'll hear all that tonight. Raw after Mania is one of the biggest Raws of the year. So, and it pretty much is the reset button for WWE. This is where they go into the new calendar year for them, and they create new storylines and new builds leading up throughout the entire year, leading up to next year's WrestleMania. So, I'm going to be locked in definitely for Raw as well as SmackDown. But like I said, man, this main event here between these three guys, this was the main event for the entire WrestleMania weekend. But moving on to night two of WrestleMania, we have the first matchup. We have Io Sky defending the Women's World Heavyweight title against Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Sky, Belair, and Ripley, with Rhea hitting a senton off the apron. Io then hits a acai moonsault to the outside, taking out Belair and Ripley. Belair then gets up, hits multiple suplexes on Io Sky in the middle of the ring. Rhea then hits a razor's edge, sending Io into Belair for a near fall. Rhea and then Belair both exchange in the middle of the ring. Belair then hits a 450 on Io off the top rope. Rhea then hits a riptide on Belair for a near fall. Belair then hits a KOD on Io for a near fall. Belair then hits a KOD on Rhea. But then Io hits a moonsault off the top rope on Belair, pins for the 3. And your winner of the match, and still Women's World Champion, is Io Sky. Hats off to Io Sky for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have Drew McIntyre taking on Damian Priest in a street fight. Number one, the entrance for Damian Priest was absolutely legendary. It was awesome. The match itself was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Drew and Damian Priest, with Damian hitting McIntyre with the steel steps ringside. It looked absolutely brutal. Drew then hits Priest with the steps. Drew then hits Priest with a chair shot. McIntyre then was keeping the pace of the match. McIntyre then hits a Claymore kick for a near fall. Priest then hits a chokeslam on McIntyre in the middle of the ring for a near fall. Priest then hits McIntyre with a chair shot. Priest then hits a razor's edge on McIntyre, sending McIntyre through the tables. McIntyre then hits a future shock DDT on the steel steps in the middle of the ring for a near fall. Priest and McIntyre then both exchange, with Priest going for an old school, but McIntyre then pushed Priest off the ropes, sending him through the tables on the outside. Followed by McIntyre hitting a Claymore on Priest using a chair that was pretty much stacked in the corner. Pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Drew McIntyre. Hats off to Drew McIntyre for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have the Fatal 4-Way for the WWE Intercontinental Championship. It is Penta taking on Dominic Mysterio, Finn Balor, and the current, at that time, Intercontinental Champion, Braun Breaker. It was a good match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Penta, Mysterio, Balor, and Breaker, with Breaker keeping the pace of the match. Breaker then hits a spear on Mysterio for a near fall, followed by Braun hitting a Frankensteiner on Finn off the top rope for a near fall. Dominic then attacks Finn Balor. Penta then hits a Penta driver in the middle of the ring. Penta and Braun both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Penta hitting a Mexican Destroyer for a near fall. Carlito then stops the pinfall. Breaker then hits a spear on Carlito, sending him through the announce table. Breaker then hits a spear on Penta. Dominic then hits a 619 on Braun. Finn then hits a coup de grace off the top rope. But then Dominic Mysterio then hits a frog splash on Finn Balor, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and new Intercontinental Champion is Dominic Mysterio. Hats off to Dominic Mysterio for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have Randy Orton. Now, Randy Orton was coming into this year's WrestleMania without an opponent due to the fact that Kevin Owens needed neck surgery. So Orton told everybody on SmackDown that he was going to be at this year's WrestleMania come hell or high water. So Orton comes out to the ring, grabs a microphone. He's pretty much wondering who his mystery opponent was going to be, but he did say whoever it was, they were going to meet the most dangerous 3 letters in all professional wrestling, an RKO. So everybody was waiting to see who was going to answer that call, and the person that answered that call was none other than TNA's current World Heavyweight Champion, Joe Hendry. Hendry makes an appearance. He is a mystery opponent for Randy Orton. The match itself was a decent match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Orton and Hendry. Orton was keeping the pace of the match, with Orton hitting a power slam in the middle of the ring. Hendry then gets up, hits a fall-away slam on Orton in the middle of the ring, but Orton quickly hits an RKO on Joe Hendry, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Randy Orton. After the match, Orton then greets Joe Hendry. He goes to lift Hendry's arm up in the middle of the ring, pretty much giving a little bit of respect to Joe Hendry, but then all of a sudden, we get the Randy Orton from old, and Randy Orton hits another RKO on Joe Hendry, leaving Joe Hendry lifeless in the middle of the ring. Moving on from that, we have Logan Paul taking on AJ Styles. I thought it was a decent match, back and forth matchup between Logan Paul and AJ Styles, with AJ keeping the pace of the match. But Logan hits a frog splash off the top rope for a near fall, followed by a springboard lion salt. Logan then hits a slingshot lariat on AJ Styles for a near fall, and as well as a Styles clash. AJ then gets up, hits a style clash of his own on Logan Paul. Logan Paul's friends here, seemingly holding brass knuckles, but that friend is met with Karrion Kross. Kross then stops the friend from helping out Logan Paul. Kross is ringside with AJ Styles, telling AJ Styles to use the brass knuckles to take out Logan Paul. Styles then takes the brass knuckles, he throws it towards the steel steps, and he hits Karrion Kross, leaving him pretty much laid out ringside. Styles then gets back in the ring, but Logan hits a pulverizer on AJ Styles, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Logan Paul. Hats off to Logan Paul for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have the Women's Tag Team Championship match. It is Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez defending the Women's Tag Team titles against Lyra Valkyria and a mystery partner. Now, a lot of people, and I didn't know about this until the day this match happened, that originally this was supposed to be Liv and Raquel defending those titles against Lyra Valkyria and Bayley. Now, the pre-show of WrestleMania 41, Bayley was seemingly attacked backstage, and she was written off TV. A lot of people, including myself, were pissed off. And I'm still pissed about it, which I will talk about towards the end of the podcast. But Bayley was ultimately, written off TV. You had this woman in a gauntlet match with Lyra to crown a new number 1 contender for Liv and Raquel. And Bayley and Lyra were successful. They were the new number 1 contenders for the women's tag team titles. We get Bayley to come all the way out to Vegas for WrestleMania 41. And then night one of WrestleMania, she's seemingly attacked backstage. No one knows who attacked her. And then she was pretty much scrapped from the WrestleMania 41 Night 2 matchup against, her and Lyra teaming up against Liv and Raquel. And no one understood why. A lot of people, there was even people saying that a lot of people backstage were legitimately upset. They felt bad for Bayley. I feel bad for Bayley. Bayley got screwed over. And she was replaced. And that person that replaced Bayley was the return of none other than Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch teams up with Lyra Valkyria to take on Liv and Raquel. The match itself, it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between both teams with Liv and Raquel keeping the pace of the match. Becky then applies a disarmer, but the hold's broken. Liv then hits an oblivion for a near fall. Becky then hits a manhandle slam in the middle of the ring, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch. They are now the new Women's Tag Team Champions. I want to talk a little bit about this matchup, man. I mentioned this, a couple seconds ago, but, my thing with this, I don't know what the hell happened here with Bayley. I obviously there has been issues, not issues, but I know, Bayley has a history with WWE, specifically, honestly, ironically, around the women's tag team titles. When her and Sasha were tag team, partners and stuff like that, there was a little bit of chaos there, and, there were some issues going on backstage with Bayley. Well, Bayley, the issue that I have and why I'm pissed off is they put Bayley. She was already in a storyline with Roxanne Perez, and they pulled Bayley off that storyline with Perez for whatever reason. Then they put Bayley with Lyra Valkyria to go in this gauntlet match to be crowned the new number 1 contenders for the Women's Tag Team Championships. And then we literally get to night 1 of WrestleMania, the pre-show, the kickoff show to night 1. And then we see Bayley being attacked backstage by who knows who, and then she seemingly pulled off the card entirely of WrestleMania. You know what I'm saying? Like, and from what I've heard, that this was the creative plan from the get-go, the entire time. I believe that's bullshit, to be honest with you. I think that's complete horseshit. Why would you have Bayley go through all that shit? Why would you have Bayley go in a gauntlet match? You pull her from the storyline with her and Roxanne Perez, and then you put her in a matchup or a team seemingly with Lyra Valkyria. You have them go through a gauntlet match to crown them the new number 1 contenders to Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez's women's tag team belts, just to pull her off that match literally the day of WrestleMania. To me, there's it seems far-fetched. It seems like there's some kind of backstage bullshit going on, and I don't know why. And you read comments from other people stating that some of the talent legitimately feel bad for Bayley, and they feel as if Bayley got screwed over. And I had to tend to agree with them. I don't understand what was the purpose of pulling her from this matchup literally the weekend of WrestleMania. I mean, day 1, she's in Vegas. And then you write her off TV with a backstage attack. No one knows who attacked Bayley, just to slot in Becky Lynch. Now, to me, and my conspiracy theories hat, and the way I think is the fact that you had to look at the narrative. Who has more pull here? Bayley or Becky? And I feel like Becky, this was something that they wanted Becky to have, and wanted Becky to have her moment on her return on the biggest stage of them all at WrestleMania, and have her team up with Lyra Valkyria to take on Raquel and Liv Morgan for those women's tag team titles. I think that's bullshit. I think that's, if I was Bayley, honestly, and after everything, all the shit that Bayley's gone through with WWE, I would have to contemplate my position within the company at this point, to be honest. Because what was the point of doing this? What was the purpose of her getting pulled from this event, literally the day of WrestleMania, just to have her written off TV? So you have her fly out to Vegas, write her off TV with attack backstage, so she's slotted out of the match with her and Lyra Valkyria. But then you put in Becky Lynch. I think that's complete and utter bullshit. If Becky was going to return, seemingly back to WWE, why not have Becky Lynch just return at the Raw after Mania? Because Raw after Mania is one of the biggest, Raws in the entire year. Why not have her return at the Raw after Mania? You know what I mean? Why do it at WrestleMania? Why pull Bayley from her moment at WrestleMania just to slot in Becky Lynch because, it's Becky Lynch? We need Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. No, you don't. No, you do not. And I feel bad for Bayley. I legitimately feel bad for Bayley. I really do. I don't know what the whole purpose of writing her off this match for. I don't know if there was some kind of backstage altercation that she had with the higher-ups. I don't know. But to me, you're sitting here saying that this was in the creative plans for weeks. I call bullshit. I call severe bullshit on this. This was something that they did last minute because I think Becky finally said, you know what, I want to return. and I want to be returned to WrestleMania, because to me, I think Becky does have more pull in the company than a Bayley does. And Becky finally said, you know what, I'm going to pull the trigger on this, and I'm going to make my return at the grandest stage of them all at WrestleMania. So you need to pull Becky off this match. I'm going to team up with Lyra Valkyria, and we're going to win the women's tag team titles against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. That, to me, seemingly makes it a lot more plausible than people saying, oh, well, you know what, this was a part of the creative plans for, weeks or months. Why? Because you pulled her from the Roxanne Perez situation that she had with Roxanne Perez. You pulled Bayley off of that. Then you slot Bayley into a tag team with Lyra Valkyria. They go through a gauntlet match to crown new number one contenders. Bayley and Lyra were successful. And then we get to WrestleMania, where Liv was and Raquel were defending those titles against both Lyra and Bayley. And then seemingly you have Bayley show up day one at WrestleMania during the pre-show, and she somehow gets attacked backstage, and then you pull Bayley off the card. Now, that to me, that seems far-fetched, and it seems like a bunch of bullshit, in my honest opinion. And I honestly wasn't thrilled about this at all. I wasn't thrilled about it at all, and I think it was something where it was a slap in the face to someone like Bayley. I really do, and shame on WWE for that. And to me, there was no point of writing her off television. Everybody that I talked to even said that she's not legitimately injured. This was something that was planned, supposedly, for weeks, if not months on end, that they were going to pull Bayley out of this matchup with Lyra last minute. Literally last minute. A day before her matchup at WrestleMania. Come on, bro. The shit like that you just don't do. But, again, hats off to Becky and Lyra for getting the win in that matchup and becoming the new women's tag team champions. Moving on from that, we go into the main event of Night 2 of WrestleMania 41. This was absolutely a fucking disaster. This was Cody Rhodes defending the Universal title against John Cena. John Cena was trying to make history by breaking the record that's currently being held by himself and Ric Flair, but by becoming the 17-time World Heavyweight Champion. The match itself, I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup, or decent match. Back and forth matchup between Cena and Rhodes, with Cena seemingly keeping the pace of the match. Rhodes hits a power slam on Cena in the middle of the ring, followed by a Cody cutter for a near fall. Cena then gets up, hits an AA on Rhodes for a near fall, followed by a 5-knuckle shuffle in the middle of the ring. Cena then goes to the top rope, hits an avalanche AA on Rhodes for a near fall. Rhodes then gets up, hits another Cody cutter on Cena for a near fall. Cena then gets up, hits another AA on Rhodes. Then Cena applies an STFU on Rhodes in the middle of the ring, but the hold is broken. Referee is taken out. Rhodes then hits another crossroads, or hits a crossroads on John. Cena then gets up, sends Rhodes into the exposed turnbuckle. Cena then follows that up by hitting another AA on Rhodes for a near fall. Travis Scott music hits. He makes his way out to the ring. Takes a long time to walk down to the damn ring. Rhodes then hits a crossroads in the middle of the ring. Scott then pulls the referee out of the ring. Rhodes then hits a crossroads on Scott in the middle of the ring. After that, John then hits a low blow on Cody Rhodes. Then Cena hits Rhodes with the title belt, goes for the cover, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and new Universal Champion is John Cena. John Cena makes history. He breaks the record, and he is now 17-time World Heavyweight Champion. That's pretty much it. Look, guys, to be honest with you, man, and I mentioned this earlier for Night 1, obviously the Triple Threat match was the main event for the entire weekend of WrestleMania for both Night 1 and Night 2. This John Cena situation with Cody last night was a huge fucking letdown. This was a huge problem across the board. We get this, I would say lackadaisical build here between John and Cody for the first couple of weeks. It was mainly just John dissing the fans. And then towards the end, leading up to WrestleMania, then we got the banter back and forth between Cena and Cody Rhodes, where Rhodes at least 2 times would hit a crossroads on John Cena. I told you guys that Cena was going to walk out of WrestleMania and break the record. He had to. There was no other way around it. My issue with this is, number one, this was a humongous fucked finish. Number one, John hitting Rhodes with that title belt, and then just going for the cover with the help of the Travis Scott. Goes for the cover, pins for the 3, and John walks out new Universal Champion. It was a shitty finish, bro. Literally. And there was a lot of issues with this. When all this shit happened with John turning heel, The Rock played a humongous part in this situation with John Cena turning heel. We saw what happened at the Elimination Chamber when John won the Chamber. Rock comes out, or John wins the match and all this other shit, and then obviously John turns heel. The Rock's looking for Cody Rhodes to join him, and then we seemingly have Travis Scott and John Cena beat the piss out of Cody Rhodes, which ultimately set up the matchup between John and Cody Rhodes for this year's WrestleMania. This match fell flat, bro. And one of my issues is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. The Rock should have been a part of this matchup in some kind of capacity in the main event of night 2 between Rhodes and Cena in some kind of fashion. But no, we get Travis Scott instead of The Rock. To me, that's an L. That's a huge fucking L. I don't know what The Rock was doing. I have no idea what the hell he was doing during the WrestleMania weekend. I heard he was in Hawaii or some shit. The Rock needed to be a part of this show. The thing that pisses me off more than anything with The Rock is The Rock teases a lot of bullshit, to be honest with you. And they brought The Rock back as the final boss and all this other bullshit. And then you had The Rock, again, a part of a storyline, once again, with Cody Rhodes, where John Cena turns heel, one of the biggest heel turns in WWE history. And then we get to WrestleMania, the biggest show of the year, the grandest stage of them all, and we have no sighting of The Rock at all. Hell, The Rock wasn't even in Vegas this year for the fucking show. He was in Hawaii. So my issue with this is The Rock has a big play into the storyline here between John and Cody, and Rock's nowhere to be fucking found. Nothing. The Rock doesn't come out and help John. The Rock's not there after the match where he goes in the ring and greets John. Nothing. We don't get a damn thing from The Rock. Nothing. So my issue is don't bring this fucking guy back into the fold of WWE and put him in on-screen storylines if you're not actually going to use him when the time matters and the time counts. It's a waste of everybody's fucking time. Literally. It was a waste of fucking time. There's no reason why The Rock was not there at WrestleMania. Rock should have fucking been there. He should have been there for Night 2's main event. He should have been there in some kind of fucking capacity to be around this Night 2 main event. I mean, he plays a significant role in this storyline here between John and Rhodes. And he's nowhere to be fucking found. Rock's somewhere in Hawaii, driving around, Hawaii, not giving a goddamn about them. He don't give a fuck about WWE, bro. He don't, man. This guy's a member of the board and all this other shit. He don't give a rat's ass, man. As long as people are, lining his pockets with cash, The Rock doesn't give a rat's ass. He don't. He doesn't give a goddamn about this shit. And this WrestleMania will go down as one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. Thanks to this main event. Because you got to understand something, man. WrestleMania Night 2 is the night. It's the last thing that we see from WrestleMania. The last thing that we see at WrestleMania this year was John versus Cody. And then we get a fuck finish like that. And that's what we're going off the air with. John hitting Cody Rhodes with the championship due to the help from Travis Scott. That's what we're going off the air with. So, and not only that, John doesn't even win, even though he's a heel. That's the fashion that John Cena wins and breaks the record currently being held at the time between him and Ric Flair. That's how John's going to break the record? Come on, bro. I'd like to know personally who was the goddamn producer that produced that main event. Was it Road Dogg? Was it Hunter? Who produced that main event? Because whoever it was that produced that main event needs to be fucking fired. And for those people that are saying, oh yeah, WWE is red hot right now, bro, you cannot sit here and tell me after the shit we just saw for WrestleMania, especially Night 2, that WWE is, oh man, they're red hot right now. No, the fuck they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. I would even put that last week's Dynamite was almost better than this WrestleMania this year, but minus the triple threat match. Seriously, bro, this was an AEW event. But it was just WrestleMania. This is WWE's biggest show of the year. This is the Super Bowl of professional wrestling, and this is the shit that we're getting for Night 1 and Night 2? You got to be fucking kidding me. I'm literally sitting there Night 2, and I'm watching the entire event with my wife. And we get to the main event. And I watch the main event just like everybody else does. And literally, when that shit went off the air, I looked at my wife, and I looked so fucking pissed off. Even my wife was pissed. And she's like, we get to all this build-up, all this storyline here between John and Rhodes, just for this shit to happen the way it went down. I mean, honestly, bro, you wasted people's fucking time. And my thing is, and this is going to be a hot take for a lot of people, but you know what? It is what it is. Why are we getting Travis Scott walking out helping John Cena when it should have been the fucking Rock? I mean, honestly, Travis Scott doesn't even fucking wrestle, bro. This guy's a rapper. Honestly, yeah, I understand he's a big fan of the WWE. I get it. A lot of other celebrities are huge fans of WWE. You look at Ice Cube's son. He's a huge fan of professional wrestling. Huge fan. He even has a podcast of his own, interviewing wrestlers. Great. Awesome. I'm a big fan of Ice Cube. Always have been, always will be. But, bro, this is one of the biggest matches of the year. This was a match that everybody was anticipating. Rhodes versus Cena. And then we get a finish like that. Get the fuck out of here, man. Like, seriously, what is the mindset of this shit? Really? Honestly, truthfully. No Rock at all. So, like, my thing is this. We get Raw after Mania, which is the biggest Raw of the year. I'm gonna tell you right now. John Cena is scheduled for Monday Night Raw tonight. Tonight. To address the fans. I guess talk about what happened at WrestleMania. Something. He's supposed to be at Raw tonight. I'm going to tell you right now, bro. If we get John Cena walking out of the ring tonight for Monday Night Raw and then we get the final boss coming out to that ring, I'm going to be pissed. I'm going to be pissed. Absolutely pissed. Where the fuck was The Rock at WrestleMania? And, bro, if you're that fucking busy with acting or doing whatever, running the UFL, whatever the fuck it is, the football league, stay the hell away. Stay away. You wanted to be a member of the board. You wanted a big-time role in WWE. You want to get these storylines and these on-air segments and high-profile matches, and then you're an absolute no-show for fucking WrestleMania. You hire a writer, a Hollywood writer. What's his name, Brian Glazer or some shit like that? You bring in a writer to write for yourself alone, and then you don't show up for WrestleMania? You're a part of the storyline just like Cody Rhodes and John Cena is. I mean, honestly, bro. What the fuck are we doing here? Really? But we get Travis Scott walking down to the ring, holding a title that was given to him by Triple H, and him taking his sweet-ass time to get to the fucking ring. And then we get, okay, well, yep, Travis Scott's going to help out John Cena. Cena's going to hit Rhodes with the belt and secure the victory. That's the fucking end game that we're doing here. Wasting, for what it's worth, bro, I legitimately feel bad for the people that bought tickets front row for this shit. I do. I legitimately do. And WrestleMania as a whole, besides that triple threat match, fell flat on its ass. Flat out. Flat out. You can't tell me otherwise. This was one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. Absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. And it's a shame, bro. It's a shame. I mean, the ticket prices alone for these events were very expensive, number one. And you look at what happened in the 2-day span of this shit. You had Rey Mysterio, he gets injured, not his fault, he gets injured, he gets pulled from the match between him and El Grande Americano. Rey Fenix gets slotted in, Phoenix takes the L. Put over a Grande Americano, okay. And then we get the whole situation with Bayley, which is complete and utter bullshit, that Bayley shows up, goes to Vegas, okay, goes to Vegas. She's in Vegas, day one, for WrestleMania, and then there's an angle that she got attacked backstage during the pre-show, and they took Bayley out of the match with her and Lyra Valkyria to take on Raquel and Liv. Why? To slot in a return of Becky Lynch. So you can't tell me, oh, this was planned for... No. You wanted Becky Lynch to replace Bayley because Becky's the bigger name. Everybody was waiting, oh, when are we going to see Becky? When are we going to see Becky? This was something where this was, okay, who has more pull? And Becky Lynch has got the pull in WWE. And she probably approached them and said, hey, I'm ready to return. I want to return at WrestleMania. And bam, we're going to take out Bayley. We're going to slot in Becky Lynch. We're going to have Becky team up with Lyra Valkyria. And we're going to have them walk out Women's Tag Team Champions. Bullshit. Bullshit. And if I was Bayley, I would stay clear the hell away for that Women's Tag Team titles. Because no offense, bro, that is bad juju for her. Absolutely. Because if you look at the situation beforehand, when Vince was running the show and all that shit with John Laurinaitis and all that other bullshit, there was a significant issue there between, Bayley and WWE at the time surrounding themselves with that Women's Tag Team title. It was Bayley and Sasha at first, and then it went from Sasha to Naomi, which ultimately had Sasha and Naomi leave WWE, where Naomi went to TNA, and Sasha went to New Japan and all this other shit and worked on the indies. So if I was Bayley, I'd stay clear the hell away from those Women's Tag Team titles, bro, because that is bad juju for you written all over the fucking place. I think what they did to Bayley was completely and utter disrespectful. I think it was a slap in the face to Bayley. Clearly something was going on because you had talent that were backstage telling people seemingly that they felt bad legitimately for Bayley because she got pulled out of WrestleMania this year, which is complete and utter bullshit. I mean, come on, bro. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? Honestly, what are we doing? This is ridiculous, man. This is going to go down as one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. And thank God that we got the fucking triple threat match that happened night one, because that was the main event for the 2-day span of WrestleMania. That was the best goddamn match we got throughout the entire WrestleMania day 1 and day 2. Absolutely. The way that they put that together, the way that those three guys tore the house down in that main event for night 1, the drama factor in it with Paul Heyman and how Paul Heyman played a significant role in this matchup, turning his back on his best friend with CM Punk and then turning his back on the Tribal Chief and joining the likes of Seth Rollins. You couldn't ask for a better main event than that right there. It was probably the best triple threat match we've seen in all WWE history. It was great. And they put it together very well. And then we get to night 2 for the Universal title between John and Rhodes, and there's no show of The Rock. The match ends on a fuck finish. Like, what are we fucking doing here? Really? John hits him with the fucking title? Come on, bro. Come on. Jesus Christ. Really? Not only did it make John Cena's win look like shit, it made Cody Rhodes look like a goddamn punk. It really did. Honestly, Cody Rhodes was walking up the aisle crying and shit and everything else like that. It's like, bro, they made you look like a sucker. They really did. And it's a goddamn shame. You know, am I all for Cody chasing for the Universal? Yeah, absolutely. But in the fashion that they did it last night, no, bro. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. John was right. He said he was going to ruin wrestling, and yeah, they did it. That was a part of it. You know, a part of it was last night. And that's the shit that we're going to get from John Cena, because it was fucking awful. But I will give credit where credit's due. Cody Rhodes carried that fucking match last night with him and John Cena. John Cena's got some ring rust like you would not believe, bro. Seriously. Honestly. And for what it's worth, you know, I don't know what's going to happen next year with John now that he is Universal Champion. I don't know, but for what it's worth, am I worried? Absolutely, I'm fucking worried. Absolutely. This could be very bad for WWE. And I don't think people are really looking into that like they should be. This could be a fucking problem. This could be a big issue for WWE where people are going to get pissed, to be honest with you. This might drive some fans away, to be honest with you. You know, I know a lot of people are, this is going to save WWE and all this other shit. I don't know, bro. I don't know. I know when the match happened between Cody and John, there was people booing Cody Rhodes. I see that. But how is this really going to play out with John? And a lot of people, like myself, are legitimately pissed off because we did not see The Rock. Where the fuck was The Rock at? He's in Hawaii, hanging out. Bro, you're a part of the storyline. Where the fuck are you? You know what I'm saying? Like, you needed to be a part of that matchup in the main event of night 2. You're nowhere to be found. Why? Like, what are we doing here? Is what I'm saying. And I want to know who produced that main event, because whoever the hell it was needs to be fucking fired. If it was Road Dogg, see you later, bud. See ya. Because my God, was that fucking bad. And I'm not the only one that's complaining about this shit or pissed off about how WrestleMania went. I've seen so many other people, other podcasters, other people in the community that have complained and stressed their grievances with this shit, and they were pissed off to no end. And you know who those people are. They're higher ups, if you will, in the podcast game, and you know who they are. They were legitimately pissed off too. And I don't blame them. I do not blame them. I love what I'm doing here, and I love talking about pro wrestling, man, but this shit was fucking bad last night. Absolutely bad. And I'm not going to sit here, and I told you guys before, man, there's no tribalism with me. If this shit's bad, I'm going to tell you it's fucking bad. That goes for WWE, that goes for AEW. I think AEW Dynamite episode last week was probably the best Dynamite episode we've seen in all of 2025 so far. And hopefully they can improve on that even this week. Because I'm going to tell you right now, bro, as far as that Dynamite episode, I put it miles ahead of Night 2 of WrestleMania Night 2. To be honest with you. It might be a hot take for a lot of people, but my God, Night 2 of WrestleMania was fucking awful. This is ridiculous, man. Honestly. And the funny thing is, everybody's watching WrestleMania, or those who watch WrestleMania. Leading up to this year's WrestleMania, WWE dropped a documentary. I don't know if you guys have seen it or not. It's on Peacock. It was pretty much highlighting WrestleMania 9. It was WWE's first WrestleMania in Las Vegas, and they had it at Caesar's Palace, and how all the shit they had to do and all the behind-the-scenes stuff from, Bobby the Brain Heenan and all the aesthetics they had to put into, Caesar's Palace, and how they created WrestleMania 9 and all the backstage footage from different wrestlers like the Steiners and Shawn and Taker, Yokozuna, Bigelow, Tataka, Shawn, all these other different athletes. Sensational Sherry was also a part of it as well. And everybody kept saying, it was so hard to create an event for Las Vegas, and they were really apprehensive about the event because they weren't selling tickets, and, Hogan was dealing with some injuries, as well as Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and yada, 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 and Hogan had to come in to save their ass for ticket sales and all this other shit. And then we get to this year's WrestleMania in Vegas, and bro, it's it's like the same shit. Honestly, I mean, to me, the fact that it's not, this year's WrestleMania wasn't at Caesar's Palace. It was at Allegiant Stadium where the Las Vegas Raiders play. But I mean, bro, what the fuck are we doing? If I was WWE, I'd stay the hell away from Vegas. Vegas has got some bad juju for you, bro. This shit's not panning out at all for you. This is bad. This is a fucking problem. I would stay the hell away from Las Vegas as far as WWE's concerned. This is bad, bro. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, people had to ask themselves why. Why didn't we not see The Rock? Why did Bayley get pulled from the matchup that she was supposed to be scheduled in with her and Lyra taking on Liv and Raquel? I get why Ray was taken off the show because he had a torn groin or a pulled groin, and he was taken off the show. I get it. He's legitimately injured. Why is Bayley getting kicked off the show? Why did Bayley get kicked off because Becky's more important? You know what I mean? Like, you have to ask yourself this even as a fan. Why? Some people out there, they don't give a shit. They don't care. I care. You know what I mean? This is what I do. So, yeah, I'm a little confused on what the hell happened here. What the hell was going on? Why was Bayley pulled? Why was The Rock not there? You know what I mean? The Rock should have been a part of this main event on night 2. Absolutely. But he's nowhere to be found. You know what I'm saying? So, it's I don't get it. The other things I want to talk about, too, before I get the hell up out of here is the pre-show. Now, they usually they have a pre-show for both night 1 and night 2, obviously. I think it was day 1's pre-show where, you see Michael Cole sitting there with Triple H, and you see a bunch of luchadors surrounding both Triple H and Michael Cole. And Michael Cole makes the announcement that WWE has acquired AAA. They have now acquired AAA. There's a lot of decent talent over at AAA, like Kingo, stuff like that wrestle for AAA or wrestle under the AAA banner. WWE has acquired AAA. And we already have a matchup or a PLE, if you will, already announced for the acquisition of AAA. We're getting, WWE is bringing back Worlds Collide. And it seems as if it's going to be NXT and WWE's main roster and AAA all under one roof for one show, which being Worlds Collide, which I think is taking place June 7th. It's literally the same day as Money in the Bank. A lot of people are making a big fuss about this and saying, oh, this is a big deal. I'm going to be honest with you. With this situation, you had to look at it from multiple different angles. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, WWE and Triple H, they're playing, chess while everybody else is playing checkers. I don't think the AAA acquisition is a huge goddamn deal. I just don't. I don't know a lot about AAA. I don't personally. Do I think it's a huge deal for them to acquire the company? No. But what I will say is this, obviously WWE is in the business of putting AEW out of business. And it's kind of ironic how AEW announced a Grand Slam event that's taking place in Arena, Mexico, where it'll be AEW against seemingly CMML. And then here we have, Triple H and WWE announcing that they acquired AAA, and they're putting on a Worlds Collide event that's happening June 7th, right around the same time a Grand Slam is going to be happening. So, it's, obviously, it's, for that, there is clearly tribalism between both companies. I don't have tribalism myself. I want both companies to succeed. But you could tell that there's tribalism within both AEW, or specifically Tony Khan, and maybe Nick Khan and Triple H. There's clearly something going on there between those, two guys. And to me, I just feel like it's kind of petty, to be honest with you, from WWE. I don't know what's going to come out of this AAA deal. As far as, what I do know is, like I said earlier, there's going to be an event that's going to be Worlds Collide that's taking place, I believe, June 7th. That weekend. I think it's the same day, obviously, I think, honestly, as Money in the Bank. So we'll see how it plays out, man. But, Triple H and WWE, they're in the business of taking over. Triple H has mentioned that they still want to do an NXT Europe run. Now they acquired AAA. Now they're working with TNA. They're looking to take over. It's not something where, and for that, yeah, I will say that Triple H and WWE are playing checkers besides chess. They're looking for global domination. And I would not be surprised if they're looking to buy New Japan. I would not be surprised if they're looking to possibly purchase at one point maybe TNA. NXT is currently working with TNA right now, and both their talents are going to either NXT or TNA events. So I could see WWE possibly purchasing TNA at some point, maybe, yeah. But they're looking to have a global takeover, bro. They don't want AEW around. AEW, and I'm not sitting here saying that AEW is competition. Maybe in the first 2-3 years of AEW's existence, yeah, maybe they were competition at one point when Vince was still running WWE. But AEW is not competition right now to WWE. It's not a thing. And I think it's something where it's, a lot of, WWE specifically are making a mountain out of a molehill. AEW is not competition, bro. They're just not. WWE's in miles and leagues of their own compared to AEW. And I love AEW as well, but the truth is the truth. I mean, WWE is miles ahead of what AEW is doing right now. And I just think what they're doing is just trying to put that final nail in the coffin just to secure the deal to pretty much close up the doors for AEW. And for what I just don't see AEW really being a threat to what WWE's doing. I just think they're doing it out of pettiness and just trying to close up the doors for Tony Khan and AEW. I think that's really what it comes down to. For AEW, I know there's been rumors and speculation that Tony Khan might purchase a New Japan Pro Wrestling. It looks like New Japan ain't doing so hot nowadays. And Tony Khan might purchase New Japan. I don't know. I have no idea. But, I mean, you have to look at the narrative, man. I mean, WWE has, now they, are working with TNA. They acquired AAA, and right now sky's the limit for WWE as far as that aspect is concerned. I mean, they run a great business model over there, and it just works for them. They know what they're doing. Triple H and them have a great team over there, and they know what they're doing. They know how to run a business where, Tony Khan, basically on an island all by himself, and it's a lot on one guy. Now, he owns Ring of Honor as well as AEW. But I mean, Ring of Honor is not even doing that well. I think Ring of Honor is a dead promotion. But Tony Khan doesn't have the team around him like a Triple H does. Triple H has Nick Khan. He has Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He has writers that are coming in writing really good shows for Raw and SmackDown. So I mean, Tony Khan doesn't have that. Everything really is at the helm of Tony Khan. So unfortunately, hopefully he can change that and put a little bit more trust in some other people to help him with AEW. But right now it's WWE's miles ahead of what AEW is doing. So I don't see AEW really being a competitor right now for WWE. So I just feel like it was kind of a slap in the face. We'll see how it plays out for Worlds Collide, but I don't know. But for WrestleMania, man, I mean, and again, I have a lot of hot takes and stuff like that, and I get frustrated, but I'm being honest with y'all, man. I think this WrestleMania this year it just fell flat. And it is absolutely frustrating. It is. I mean, it's frustrating because, it's 2 days, bro. It's a 2-day event, night 1 and night 2, Saturday and Sunday, and you're watching this event, and yeah, you want excitement, you want drama, you want, crazy shit to happen during WrestleMania, and we just didn't get it this year, man. It fell flat. It was lackluster. To me, the main event for both night 1 and night 2 combined, it would have to be the triple threat matchup, hands down. Rollins, Roman, and Punk. That was the main event. That was probably the best triple threat match I've seen in WWE for a very long time, if not the best triple threat match I've ever seen in WWE history. But John Cena and Rhodes, it fell flat, bro. I don't know who produced that main event, and a lot of people that I talked to were pissed, legitimately pissed off with the outcome of that match. I was happy that John won, not in the fashion that he did it. I wasn't really thrilled with Travis Scott coming out to the ring. It was just a waste of fucking time. And that position that Travis Scott had, it should have been for The Rock. The Rock not being there at all, not in the facility at all, for this main event, it was bad, man. It was a slap in the face to a lot of fans, and it makes you think, bro, even with The Rock now, are you really going to be that really intrigued on what's next for Dwayne The Rock Johnson? Because for what it's worth, bro, he let a lot of people down last night for WrestleMania's main event for night 2 between Rhodes and Cena. He should have been there, and he wasn't. And, obviously the Raw after Mania is one of the biggest Raws of the year. Like I told you guys before, man, if The Rock happens to show up tonight for Raw, is it something where he's a day late and $1 short? You know what I'm saying? I mean, how much more of an impact is it really going to make on the Raw after Mania compared to what it could have made on WrestleMania night 2? You know what I'm saying? So, you have to... I don't know, man. I just feel like... I told you guys this, for weeks leading up to WrestleMania. I think there was plans going on backstage and plans in motion where those plans fell flat. And I think Dwayne The Rock Johnson had a lot to do with those plans falling flat. To be honest with you. He had no plan of being a part of this year's WrestleMania. Not even a single bit. He didn't want to be in the crowd. He didn't want to be in attendance. Nothing. And I think ultimately that fucked up a lot of plans for this year's WrestleMania, to be honest with you. And This year's WrestleMania couldn't even hold a candle to what they did last year. Last year was incredible. Absolutely incredible. From top to bottom, the stories, everything. It was incredible. This year, it just fell flat on its ass. And it's a shame, bro. It really is, because that is the Super Bowl of wrestling, is WrestleMania. And they just seemingly just did not care. You know what I mean? And to me, it pissed me off. I'm still pissed about it, man. I just think it was something that they dropped the fucking ball with. And this was something that, again, Cena makes history as breaking the record and becoming 17-time World Heavyweight Champion. But this WrestleMania will go down also in history as one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. But with that being said, this is my review of